One is in relation to, and the Minister referred to it as the Medical Council expertise. That is referred to, in fact, in the bill, because when I did meet with the Medical Council, I also present at that meeting was, in fact, Éireann Breen from the State Claims Agency. And there was a concern expressed to me that the Medical Council didn't have the expertise to decide the level of insurance that doctors should have. And therefore, we did incorporate that into the bill, and in particular Section 5, subsection 2b, where we refer that the Council shall, having consulted with the State Claims Agency, publish on its website guidelines as to the form and scope of professional indemnity cover to be held by medical practitioners. And that deals with the criticism that the Minister put forward that the Medical Council doesn't have the expertise. I fully acknowledge that, and we took that on board. The second issue, which was raised by Senator John Crown, and I think it's a very important issue because it's an issue that is affecting doctors who do want to retire and who are retiring, and it's the follow-up cover. And I think it's an issue that has to be dealt with. How we deal with it, I'm not at all sure, but I've provided for it in Section 5, 2a, subsection B, subsection 1, that there is an obligation to have follow-on cover after retirement, but it is a problem that I accept, and it's something that we have to look at long-term. I think the Medical Council has to be involved in this. There are over 18,000 medical practitioners in the country. They have a huge administrative workload, and I fully accept that. And I think this is another lot of work that they would have to have as well. But I think there's no point in setting up a new regulatory authority or putting it over into another department to deal with it. I think the Medical Council is the most appropriate body to deal with it. Senator John Gilroy referred to, was there any evidence of people not having insurance? I was recently speaking in Cork, in fact, to a legal practitioner who said he was involved in litigation against a medical practitioner, and that medical practitioner has acknowledged to him that he doesn't have professional indemnity insurance. So it is happening out there, and I think it's important that we close off this loophole as soon as possible. Senator Barrett referred to the periodic payments scheme, and I do think it's something. The Quirk report did a very comprehensive report on that. I think it is something that we need to look at in relation to the award of compensation. And going back to what Senator John Crown has said, we do need to look at this whole issue of litigation. It is costing the state huge money, it's costing medical practitioners huge money, and we must look at to see, can we do something to deal with this issue without making sure that there is adequate compensation for anyone who does suffer, I suppose, where treatment is not appropriate, but at the same time there has to be limits as well, and I think it's something that we need to look at. In relation to the bill itself, I did look at the initial bill, which was published in 2009. I did have the consultation, as I've already outlined, very much so during the month of August and September, when I suppose there was a lot less pressure on people to sit down and talk to you, and I thought that was extremely helpful during August and September when people were available to sit down and deal with it. I do believe that this may not may not be ticking all the boxes, but I do believe that it is substantially 90% covering 90% of the issues that require to be covered. And if the department feel that they need to do a totally new bill, I'm just a little surprised that they need to do that, because I think this bill can be amended and we can take on board any amendments that they have in it. And at the same time, taking on board, in fairness to the Medical Protection Society, they've again since written to me since I published this bill and expressed a view that they needed one or two things tidied up as well. And I have no difficulty in taking their views and indeed the Medical Council views on board as well. But I do believe that this is an area, as I said outlined earlier, you cannot drive a car without insurance. I cannot practice as a solicitor without insurance, but your local GP is not required by law to have insurance. I don't want to alarm people. The vast majority of medical practitioners do have insurance, but we need to tidy this up, because under EU regulations, people can come in and set up practice here in this country, and we cannot stop it. We cannot stop it. But we must insist that the general public are protected, and that protection must involve that there is adequate insurance cover in place. And that's the reason why I believe I brought forward this bill and why I believe we should proceed with it. Thank you very much.
Right. The question is that the bill now be read a second time. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
When is it proposed to take committee stage?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. When is it proposed to sit again, Leader? When is it proposed to sit again, Leader? The House stands adjourned till 10:30 am tomorrow. No matters on the adjournment. Are you taking both of them, Minister? Yeah. First item here is Senator Martin Conway, and you have 4 minutes to express your concern for the need for the Minister for Education and Skills to grant permanent recognition to Mull Onoige National School in its Diamond, County Clare. Right,
This school is part of the Steiner family of schools. It was established a number of years ago by a number of volunteers and it was based on the Steiner model. But it would be more, it would be fair to say that it's more streamlined than the Steiner model would effectively represent. There's well in excess of 100 students now attending Mullen and Oiga National School in Ennistimon. They have been applying for permanent recognition for a number of years at this stage. They have temporary recognition. They believe, and I have no reason to doubt them, that they have met the criteria that's required by the department for permanent recognition. Because of their growing numbers, permanent recognition is an important aspiration for them that needs to become a reality as opposed to an aspiration. I think that there's a lot of parents now who've chosen to opt for this type of education, and the alternative approach that's been proposed here, which really isn't that alternative. And having spoken to a number of parents who have made representations to me, who feel that their children certainly are benefiting from the Mullen and Oiga school, I think at this stage, given the fact that it is in operation a number of years and the fact that the children are doing well there and the parents are happy, and given the fact that they meet the vast majority of the criteria, effectively all of it, there may be one or two areas that discussions are taking place, that at this stage it is in existence for such a lengthy period of time that permanent recognition is something that needs to be granted. Were they to get that, it would give them certainty. It would facilitate them building a new school. At the moment, they're in prefabs. And it would just give them the type of certainty that they need in order to further develop the educational offering which they are providing at the moment.
And I'm taking this matter on behalf of my colleague Ruairi Quinn, TD, the Minister for Education and Skills. And I want to thank Senator Conway for raising the matter, as it provides me with the opportunity to outline the current position in relation to the recognition of the status of Mullen Oiga Steiner National School in Ennistimon and County Clare. The Mullen Oiga Steiner National School, which implements the Steiner approach to education, was initially awarded provisional recognition in 2008, and this has been extended year on year since. As you're aware, all recognised schools, regardless of their philosophy or their ethos, are required to comply with the Education Act of 1998 and the rules for national schools. Schools seeking permanent recognition must also satisfy specific criteria in relation to patronage, the Board of Management implementation of the curriculum, their admissions policy and procedures for the appointment of teaching staff. Permanent recognition is contingent on schools demonstrating that they meet those requirements satisfactorily. As the Senator has already mentioned, a process is underway in relation to the request for permanent recognition from the school, and the process is based on the school's progress in fulfilling 10 undertakings committed to by the school's patron in 2007. And these undertakings were based on requirements outlined in the Education Act of 1998 and on the rules for national schools, as well as on the aforementioned criteria which all schools applying for permanent recognition must satisfy. And one of the undertakings is that the school will follow the primary school curriculum as laid down by the Department of Education. My department met with the school authorities in October of last year to discuss the school's current position in relation to those undertakings, and with a view to enabling the school to meet their permanent recognition criteria. I understand substantial progress has been made. However, significant issues do remain to be resolved, particularly in relation to how provision for pupils in the infant classes conforms with the primary school curriculum. I understand also that the Department and Mullen Oiga Steiner National School have committed to ongoing engagement with a view to enabling the schools to meet the permanent recognition criteria as soon as possible. In that regard, further correspondence has been received recently in respect to the school, which is under consideration. And it's important to note that the decision regarding full recognition depends upon the satisfactory implementation of all the undertakings. I want to thank the Senator once again for allowing me the opportunity to outline the position regarding the application for permanent recognition from Mullinoiga Steiner National School in County Clare.
Yeah, right. Thank you. When we're all right, Senator Conway, you can head away now with your good news. Senator Mark Daly. Yeah. To ask the Minister for Health to outline proposal regarding the reduction in the ambulance service in Kinmare, Carrick and Killarney, County Kerry. Right, let for the Karen O'Malley.
Thank you, Let's go here again. Before I start, I'd like to welcome the research staff of St Vincent's who work with Senator Crown to the House. It is apt, of course, that my questions on ambulance services, although a long way from St Vincent's. I'd like to welcome the Minister back to his house. We're missing him since he left. I suppose the question I'm putting down today is in relation to the issue of the people who are going to be affected by this proposed cut in service, because in reality the proposed cut in ambulance services in Kinmare, Killarney, Carrick means people are going to die. That's ultimately the stark reality of the facts. The ambulance service in Kinmare currently is 24/7, and what we are hearing through that HSE grapevine is that this service is going to be, sorry, go here. That the service that is there 24/7 at the moment in Kinmare, Carrick and Killarney is going to be reduced to an ambulance car at weekends and after 8 o'clock in the evening. What that means ultimately is that if a person suffers a stroke or a heart attack, or there's a serious ambulance in the Kinmare area, in Carrick or around the Killarney area, they're going to get a reduced service. In an example that was given to me by experts in the field, what we're talking about in that regard is if there's an accident down in Oireachtas at a weekend and the ambulance has to come from Killarney, that would mean that it would take up to an hour. But first of all, an ambulance car would go out, and an ambulance car going out is, as was described to somebody in the profession, is the equivalent of sending a fireman out with a fire extinguisher to a blazing house fire when you need to send the fire brigade. The ambulance car, which would go out, would then, if the ambulance is required to transport a person to the hospital in Cork or in Tralee, would then be called from Killarney. That ambulance in itself could be out on call, which means that the ambulance from Tralee would have to come. Tralee is an hour at speed from Kinmare, and from Oireachtas it'd be an hour and 20 minutes. At this stage, as I'm sure the good doctor would know, your outcome would be very poor indeed if you are sitting on the side of the road after an accident waiting for an ambulance 2 hours after the accident took place. The reason I'm asking the question is we are told that the service is going to be downgraded, that this reconfiguration is going to happen in the next few months. There are public meetings being planned in Kinmare to prevent this from happening, because we know that once the ambulance is gone, it will not be returning. And ultimately, people will die because the ambulance, and we've done analysis of it over the last 12 months, that outcomes would have been far worse for people in the community if they hadn't been transported to hospital by ambulance within an hour of their accident happening, or their stroke, or a heart attack. They were actually on the operating table within an hour and a half of the event happening. But if the ambulance service is withdrawn and downgraded, it will mean that it'll be 2-3 hours. And as the Minister well knows, what will happen then is the outcome will be worse. The person who suffers the heart attack or the stroke will tie up hospital beds, because instead of him just simply getting a stent put in and recovering in a matter of a day or a week, he will now tie up a hospital bed. He'll need rehabilitation, he'll need physiotherapy, and then he's going to cost the taxpayer more. So we all know prevention is better than cure, and downgrading an ambulance service and getting people the attention they need as quickly as possible will mean that the taxpayer ultimately saves money. But we're going to be penny wise and pound foolish, and what we're being told is we're at the very tail end of this process, and money had to be allocated in other constituencies to beef up services in West Cork, because there was a campaign run there, and as the last Cathaoirleach would be well aware, and he was involved in it, and now it's going to be in South Kerry they're going to try and make the savings, and ultimately lives will be lost, and we will have worse outcomes in South Kerry as a result of the proposed and the threatened downgrading of the ambulance service. Thank you, Leska here.
Margaret and Tara.
Thank you, and I'm taking this adjournment debate on behalf of my colleague James Riley TD, the Minister for Health, and I want to thank Senator Daly for giving me the opportunity to address this matter. Firstly, I want to point out that the National Ambulance Service, the NAS, is not a static service. The NAS deploys its resources dynamically and on a regional and national rather than a local basis. Dynamic deployment of ambulance resources ensures that the nearest appropriate resource is sent to an incident. The Senator may be aware that following a Labour Court judgment, the NAS has been implementing the phased replacement of on-call with on-duty rostering in the southern region. On-call rostering means that the crew is not at work, but is summoned for a call-out, with an average time from call-out to a vehicle leaving the station of over 20 minutes. On-call significantly affects response times, operational capacity, compliance with the Organisation of Working Time Act and health and safety for staff. An on-call risk assessment has been carried out for inclusion on the NAS risk register, and discussions are also pending with the Health and Safety Authority on its concerns over the use of on-call services. On duty means that highly trained paramedic crews are in their stations or their vehicles to respond immediately to emergency calls. On-duty ambulances and response vehicles are deployed dynamically according to need and demand patterns rather than the station location, and can be in optimal locations at any time based on predictive needs assessments. This allows more flexibility and responsiveness and will produce better response times for the people in Kerry and indeed a better service. The NAS has been taking a number of other steps to improve response times. These include a performance improvement action plan, more efficient rostering, an intermediate care service for non-emergency clinical transport, the National Control Centre reconfiguration project, and a trial emergency aero medical service. For the Senator's specific query, the NAS advises that the current on-call static service in Kerry will be replaced, and it is considering the most appropriate model for ambulance services in the Kerry region. Consultation will take place with a wide range of interests, including the public, staff, general practitioners and other healthcare colleagues. Other factors to be considered include the results of efficiency measures in other regions, new arrangements under the public service agreements, activity and demographic analyses, and also developments in emergency aero medical support. The Senator will note that, in line with the Labour Court recommendations, any new service model must be delivered from within existing resources, not limited to main towns and not based on the current static on-call structure. When this process is completed, an appropriate model will emerge. The HSE is committed to briefing Oireachtas members, public representatives and community leaders before implementing any final service model.
Will to Sásta, Seanad.
Ilme Sásta.
Brief chance to respond, because he's not the line minister, so he might not be in a position to answer you. But
well, I'm sure that the Minister will be able to find the answer for me. I couched in all that, and I'm grateful for the Minister's reply, but I'm also grateful for the briefing I got from experts in the field. And hidden in all that is civil service speak for box ticking and for making sure that you reach benchmarks. Average call-out times, when they're referring to average call-out times, what they're actually saying is, well, we're going to have someone seen by a paramedic or a trained professional. But what they're not saying is it actually won't be in an ambulance. So when they do come out, and it might be half an hour before they get to some locations and an hour in some places in South Kerry, that it'll be an ambulance car and the person might need to be transported. Then they have to call for the ambulance to transport them. And now we're losing more time, and any doctor will tell you the more time you lose for a critical patient, the poorer the outcome. I love this. This has got to be great. On-call risk assessment will be carried out in relation to where they're going to put the ambulance. What seems to be said here is that somehow the HSE have a crystal ball where they know people are going to have heart attacks and strokes around South Kerry, and that they've got a risk assessment and they say we're going to have the ambulance sitting at the Healy Pass or somewhere around the tunnel in Glengariff, and that we know that on a Friday night that's generally around the part of the world where they're going to have heart attacks and where there are going to be accidents. The predictive needs assessment, that's basically what they're talking about there, that we're predicting where accidents occur and we're going to locate ambulances there on Friday and Saturday nights and Sundays and between 8 and 8. What I also see at the bottom is that they're going to tell us before they implement the final service, but they're not talking about the range of options. So what we're going to get from the HSE is a briefing when they're about to implement it, and not anything to do with the actual practicalities on the ground as to the effects that this will have on people. What they are trying to say is we're going to have an ambulance on call, right? An ambulance, but it'll be an ambulance car. And an ambulance car will be no good to a person who's lying on the side of the road in Lorach or Sneem or Carsaveen or Killarney, and the ambulance that they actually need is gone away somewhere else. That's basically what we're talking about. What is actually happening here is that people are going to die because we are taking away the frontline service, the 24/7 services, the people that were protesting this week in Tala. We are taking them away, and yet we are going to ensure, and that's basically what's going to happen, people are going to die as a result of the ambulance service being withdrawn from South Kerry, from Carsaveen, Kinmare, and
I've been more than lenient with you.
You've always been like that. Yeah. That's good here. Like and I know the minister, he's not the man in charge of giving the answer, but maybe he might.
You might ask the minister to convey the concerns of Senator Daly to the senior minister, Minister Riley, and.
I shall do that. I just want to make 2 quick points.
No problem.
Very briefly. I mean, I think moving from a model of an on-call ambulance service where you may have ambulance personnel sitting in their living room at home waiting for the bleeper to go off, moving to a point where they're actually either in their vehicles or in their local station and capable of responding quickly to challenges, to emergencies, I think is a very, very positive development. I did make the point in my contribution that there will be extensive consultation with the public, staff, GPs and all other health professionals in the area before the final model is arrived at. There's no question about that. And finally, just to make the point, you can carry out reasonably scientific analysis of, population, past history of ambulance calls being issued from particular regions. One would expect that one won't be citing ambulances on the top of a mountain where you have, a population density of 2 people per square kilometre. You can use a lot of data, past data, to finally make the decision as to where is the optimum location to site ambulances in the future. I think all of that will be done. I think there's a lot of, just from the Senator's contribution, a lot of speculation without little basis on real fact as to what might happen. Let's see what the process involves. There will be consultation, and you may be surprised at the outcome of that consultation process.
Yeah.
Pleasantly surprised.
We were pleasantly surprised in West Cork last week, so you never know. We're adjourned till Modern tomorrow.